Historically speaking, around the year 400 in the Christian era, which is about 170 years before the birth of the Prophet, this is what the world looked like. There were essentially two major empires, which is the Roman Empire here on the left, the Sassanid or the Persian Empire on the northeast. And then in Africa, there was a little empire called Habasha, which was the older name of Ethiopia, and Aksum was the name of the particular sort of strong region that had a predominance of Christians living there. And there's a close tie between Aksum as well as Yemen, because Yemen was also controlled by the Habasha people. And so it was like kind of one sort of area, as it were. We start off again with Ibrahim alayhi salam, some 2,500 years before the birth of the Prophet. In this one ayah in Surah Baqarah, Ibrahim alayhi salam is asking Allah, he says, "Oh Allah, make this a secure town," he is referring to Makkah, "and provide its people with fruits," which is a reference to peace and tranquility, as well as the fact that make it a habitable place. In other words, where people can be invited to for prayer purposes, as well as can sustain themselves while they're there. And these are the two things he asked for. And he asked for particularly for those, such of them as have faith in Allah in the last day. In other words, they are believers in Allah. But Allah responded to him. He said, "As for him who is faithless, I will provide for him too, but for a short time. Then I will shove him towards the punishment of the fire, and it is an evil destination." So this is the first dua that we see about Hazrat Ibrahim. And then the next dua, he asks for something further. He says, "My Lord, or our Lord, I have settled part of my descendants, my progeny, my wife and my child Ismail, in a barren valley." We all saw the pictures of what Makkah looked like at the time. Absolutely nothing there. "And we built your sacred house, the Kaaba." And the purpose of building it was that they may maintain the prayer. In other words, prayer will be established for all times in that particular space and in that holy sort of precinct. So make the hearts of a part of the people fond of them and provide them with fruits so that they, the Quraish, may give thanks. Now, even here in this one, he's asking for two things. He says, let prayer get established in and around Makkah, in and around the Kaaba rather, and also make the hearts of the people inclined towards looking after this place of prayer in the way it's supposed to be kept. And also, once again, provide them with the fruits, in other words, the sustenance, the means of sustenance. Now, we learn quite a few things from this two du'as of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He was a man of great stature, great vision, great foresight. If you look at these du'as, it's not only about himself and his own family, but he's looking very long term into the future of the lineage of his through Ismail going down generations, and what will they become? Will they still be steadfast to this faith of monotheism, of Tawheed? Because he was a Hanif himself, one who sort of built his whole infrastructure on the idea of monotheism. So that's the one thing. And secondly, we learn also that, even in our du'as that we make, very often we get tied down by the here and now, in that we want instant relief from certain problems. So we ask du'a for things that are like kind of tangible and very close to us. And sometimes we forget to ask for our progeny, not only for our children, but for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And the progeny going forward, whether 5, 6, 10 generations lower down, what's going to be their condition? Will they still be on the faith of Islam, or will they have, got lost and followed another way? So this is what we learn from this particular dua, that we must also have this foresight of thinking of what the condition of our progeny is going to be, and make dua for them as well. That we must have pious offspring, and their offspring must also be pious and continue in the fold of Islam. We then look at the actual surah itself. It was revealed in Makkah. It's got it's a very short surah. It's only got 5 verses, so 5 ayahs. As you can see, I haven't numbered them, and it gets the name from the word elephant. So that's how we get the word Surah al-Fil, because the fil comes as the last word in this particular ayah. Now, just to give you the meaning itself, have you not seen how Allah, your Lord, your sustainer, has dealt with the companions of the elephant? And so that's the first ayah. Now, this ayah is addressed to an individual, and a single person, which is the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If you recall what I said, this event happened 50 days before his birth. So he wasn't around, he wasn't alive, and he was like a baby basically in the first year. But so he didn't observe what happened in this particular incident where Abraha came with that army of elephants and soldiers to overthrow the Kaaba, to make Yemen the forefront of religious activity and commercial hub. So he didn't know. So Allah asks, poses a question to the Prophet, says, have you not seen how your Lord or your sustainer has actually dealt with this group of people that came with elephants? Then the next ayah says, did he not make their Kaid? Kaid is a very strategically minded plan, very meticulous, with an end aim of being like imposing like a disaster on somebody else for the sake of your own sort of benefit, or for a very selfish kind of a reason. So Kaid is a meticulous plan to that magnitude. And what did Allah do with that plan? He simply made it go to fi tadlil, into going astray. Right? And this word tadlil we had in Surah Fatiha, walad dallin, talla, tadlil is the same word. There it's, we shouldn't go on the path of those who have gone astray. Here we're seeing that their plan went astray in this ayah. And how did he do it? He says, وَأَرْسَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ طَيْرًا أَبَابِيلَ. And we sent, or he sent, this is the verb to send, on them, طَيْرًا, birds in flocks or in many big numbers. And what did these birds do? تَرْمِيهِمْ, Rama is to throw. So the birds threw them, these soldiers, bihijara. You know the word Hajratul Aswad, which is the black stone. Hijara is the plural of Hajra. So he threw them, the birds threw these soldiers with hijara, many stones of sijil, simply baked clay, hardened stones that the birds could carry in their beaks or in the claws of the feet, and just drop it like missiles going down, raining on this army of the people and elephants. فَجَعَلَهُمْ, and he made them into asfin. Asfin is straw or chewed up straw, and ma'kul is chewed up, right? So something that's eaten. Like if you look at a cow that eats, like it's grazing, it will chew the length of the grass that's in front of him. And then at the end of it all, after chewing the thing so much in his mouth, sometimes pieces fall out of the mouth and then it falls on the ground. And that is like straw or grass that's eaten up. So Allah made this army resemble like a battlefield of just straw that was eaten up, totally destroyed. So if you look at this very short and succinct surah of barely 24 words, it's talking of such an event that, and it was so important in the history of mankind, this particular event, that the people didn't have a calendar at the time, and everybody called this year that this happened is the year of the elephant. So they sort of literally in Jahiliyyah period, the year of the elephant was regarded as like the norm, like how we regard the Hijrah to be the turning point of our calendar. In pre-Islamic Jahiliyyah times, this year was known as the year of the elephant. So anything before that was narrated as 1 year before the elephant, year of the elephant, to 2 years, and likewise after the year of the elephant as well, 1 year after and 2 years after, etc. So this was the magnitude of this particular event. Yeah, just maybe I should have shown you this earlier because this is the slightly bigger font and you can see clearer in terms of how the Arabic looks and also the English translation that goes with it. Okay, then we move on to I'm going to mix between the surah of Alam Tara as well as Lila fi Quraish in this particular explanation because the two are linked, right? One thing we need to know is just in terms of the geography of the area of the Arabian Peninsula, Makkah was kind of in the center, and to Sham in the north, where it was about 1800 kilometers away, and Aden in Yemen in the south was about 1500 kilometers. Now, this is the one reference in Lila fi Quraysh where they say رحلة الشتاء والصيف, that the trips in the winter and the summer months for trade and for commercial reasons. People from Makkah travel in the north and in the south, depending on the seasons and when they could get things. And this became like the trading hub of Arabia because it was in the center and everybody around the center actually came and did trade in this particular little town. We then look at the people of Habasha from Aksum. They used to travel to Sana'a or Yemen, and they also used to travel like in the north to Makkah and sometimes to the south to Aksum. And if you look at from the Mecca point of view, when they say travels to the north, it could be travels along the coastline going towards Gaza and Sham on this side, or going this way and ending up near more the Syria Golan Heights area, or also still going north is going towards Kufa area, where's Al Hira and Kufa. Right? So these are the like the trade journeys that they used to do in the north, and in the south they used to go right down to Aden via Najran, which is a mountainous area, or via a kind of a coastal route going towards Aden, or sometimes going even to Aksum across the Red Sea. And so these were the sort of the trade routes of the day during that time. Now, if you look at the map on the left, I've got a topographical map here to show height in terms of sea level. Right? So the green area is very, very low lying areas. It's like basically just a little bit above sea level. Then the slightly greener is a little higher and going towards yellow is even higher and going to the orange is very high. So what I'm getting to show you here is that it was a topography like around all continents. You have the seaside areas which are low lying, but then you have the inland areas going towards the mountains that you can see here. And Taif was also on a mountain, and then Makkah is in a valley at the bottom. So that's why when you look at these sea levels that I've got here, shows you that from Aden, which is in Yemen in the south, is at sea level. Najran is about 1293 meters above sea level. Taif up there next to Makkah is goes as high as 1879, and then Makkah is quite low down, is 277. So the distance to go there by car today, if you do a Google Maps search, it says 1,539 kilometers, takes you about 22 hours by road, and this is the shortest cut by road. Now, obviously, this was we're comparing something that happened 1,500 years ago to uh, what is today, right? Now, I'm trying to just give you a comparison just to understand what this sort of uh, onslaught to on Makkah was about. Now, in comparison of height terms, Durban is at sea level, and Van Riemen's Pass, as we know, is about 1680 above sea level, which is close to about that at 1900 it's there. Now, imagine traveling to this height from Durban, going all the way to Van Riemen, but having elephants to carry you and take you to where you want to go. So obviously the soldiers used horses and camels. That were the order of the day, and elephants were not seen in the Arabian Peninsula ever. And this was the very first time that elephants were brought in on a battlefield in order to come there to break down the four walls of the Kaaba to sort of destroy it down, pulverize the thing to stone and bring it down to its ground level. So imagine this is the height you're trying to travel. And then also on top of it, you're trying to do a distance of 1,500 kilometers. It's not like going Durban to Fernandina, which is 400 kilometers. You're going from like Joburg to Cape Town almost. That kind of a distance using camels I mean, camels also, but elephants also, and trying to climb up a mountain and go down a mountain in order to get to your destination. So this was the plan that Abraha put in place. He was planning to do this. Now he used the elephants, which is the tank of the day. Back in the day, the Arabs only knew of horses and camels. Also, in the way Allah dealt with this particular strong army, He dealt with birds, light-bodied, flying beasts in the sky. In other words, from like almost from nowhere where they could expect to be fought against, that's where Allah chose to use that sort of creation of His into demolish and disintegrate this army totally. Right? So imagine a humble young bird, like a simple, soft bird, taking on the elephant of the day and winning. Right? Now, we had recently COVID, where we also had a reset year, 2020, where people used to dub it BC before COVID and AC was after COVID. And we know what havoc that particular virus sort of unleashed, not only in South Africa, but in the whole world. So this just gives you a sense of the magnitude of this event, that by being called Year of the Elephant, it was a very, very significant event that happened at that time. Now, if you look at the timeline of this, Ismail was a son of Ibrahim, and his progeny settled all over the Al Jazeera, which is the Arabian Peninsula. Around 300 Christian CE, Yemen was controlled by the Habasha, the Ethiopians. Then in 450 CE, they had a great flood in Yemen, which decimated the economy of Yemen, and this made some Yemenis move north. And the two famous tribes, which are reported even in Islamic history as the Aus and the Khazraj, the two Jewish tribes, they moved from Yemen to Medina after this flood. And Qusay ibn Kalab, he tried to make Makkah a unified state. So what he did is he unified the tribes. Now, on the right-hand side, we have a little genealogy table of the Quraysh tribe. And if you look at Qusay here, and he had a few sons, of whom Abdul Manaf was the one of the most famous. And Abdul Manaf, in turn, he had four sons: Abdul Shams, Hashim, Abdul al-Muttalib, and Nawfal. Four sons. And what Abdul Manaf tried to do is he seized the opportunity of this economic vacuum, because basically the Abraha was just defeated in that battle where he tried to come into to capture the Kaaba. So in that, when he didn't succeed, then there was a vacuum of political leadership, and Hashim was one of the four sons, and the four brothers made what is called an ilaf, or an economic agreement between the four brothers. And obviously the tribes of the Quraysh were like then united under the bannership of these four sons. And these, from Hashim, we have Abdul Muttalib, the one son, and Abdul Muttalib was the grandfather of the Prophet, as you can see in this table here, where he had sons Abu Talib, Abu Lahab, and Abdullah had a son called Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So this is just to give you a sense of the genealogy of Ismail's lineage, coming down to the Arab line, going down into the Quraysh, and coming down to Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now, in Abraha's period, for the brief period, the Jews controlled Yemen. They oppressed the Christians that were there. And Abraha was a general in the army. He was linked to Habasha, and he led a coup in Habasha, or rather in Yemen, and he then took control on behalf of the Habashis of Yemen. And what he did is he saw that the Kaaba was the place of attraction for all the neighboring Arab tribes that used to go and leave their gods there and worship. So what he did is he built his own temple, and he called it Al-Qudais, which was a beautiful building and a beautiful structure, far more beautiful perhaps than what even the Makkah or the Kaaba looked like at that time. But there was no religious intent behind this temple. He simply built it by way of, it was his ego getting the better of him and trying to use religion for economic reasons, for his own sort of, going forward in making Yemen a very strong sort of place. So he wanted to bring back the trade and make Yemen the economic hub of the Arabian Peninsula. Now, when the Arabs heard of the shrine, they came and they defecated in it. They even burned part of it. Now, when after this was the reaction of the Arabs that they never wanted to even hear anything about this Quraish shrine temple, Abraha got so enraged, he got together his troops, and historians record that either between 12 and 60,000 soldiers were in his army, and some 9 to 13 elephants were also in the army. And there was one big elephant, and his name happened to be Mahmud. And he got together this army, and then they headed towards Taif, with the hope of conquering Mecca and overthrowing the Kaaba. And this was the same year, 2 months later, that Muhammad was born. So this just gives you the background of the Quraysh and the forces at play between Yemen and Arabia, and who tried to lead and who opposed it. Now look at what the plan of Abraha's was to invade Makkah. First of all, we know the distance was about 1,500 kilometers. If you're going to have an elephant in your army, an elephant consumes on average about 150 kilograms of food per day. Or if you give dry sort of material, it's almost 60 kilograms in dry material terms. Also, in terms of water needs, you need to give it fresh water of 1 bathtub full per elephant per day. So that's a lot of preparation that you got to make just to take 9 elephants with you on this journey. Then on top of it, if you look at how much an elephant can walk, they say on average about 25 kilometers in topsy-turvy kind of terrain. But if it's a flat terrain, it can do up to about 195 kilometers, which is quite a distance for an elephant to do. But this terrain wasn't just exactly that kind of, lush green flat terrain like you find in Botswana or the Serengeti. This is like mountainous area, and obviously an elephant can't walk on the beach itself because that sort of sand is too soft, and their feet are not made to walk on soft sand, while camels can. But so there's a logistics plan that he had to put into place in order to get this army and men and animals across to fight. So if we take the minimum amounts, which is 9 elephants, and say he had 12,000 men in his army, he had to even carry food, water, and weapons for his army of people as well as elephants for the journey that would probably last 2 months. So you can imagine what a huge convoy of animals and people that were required to make this trip. Now, Makkah had a very sparse population, just possibly 2,000 or so, and it was very desolate. So a force of 12,000 will just overrun the thing like in no time. It will just overpower it very, very easily. Like we said, Abraha's motive wasn't actually religious. It was actually economic. And the Quraysh also, they hosted idols and they kept tribes under check by looking after the idols that those tribes kept, either in the Kaaba or around the Kaaba. And in that way, they kept the neighboring tribes under control, and they controlled the trade that was going on. Now, in the tribe of Thaqif, they had their own idol called Allat. Now, Allat, Al-Uzza, and Al-Manat, these are the 3 idols that were worshipped at the time, and these are mentioned in the Quran and other verses. And this particular tribe decided to keep this one idol not in the Kaaba, but they had it in Taif. And Abu Rijal was from this tribe of Thaqif, and he was like a spy, and they sort of made a deal between Abraha's army and this tribe to say that we'll help you find a short route with your elephants down the mountains of Taif to go to Mecca, in order for you to gain superiority over the Arabs, because they had this rivalry between this tribe and the other tribes. Now, in any case, this Abu Rijal guy, he died on the way, trying to show them the way. And the Arabs were so angry with this man because he was like a sellout. They actually spat on his grave whenever they passed it. So that is this background to it. Now, if you look at the onslaught of Makkah, Surah Al-Fil is about, it happened in the month of Muharram. When they arrived in Muzdalifah, which I'll show you a map just now where Muzdalifah is, it's near Makkah. In the days of Hajj, we all go through Arafat, Muzdalifah, and Mina, and then we go to Makkah. Now, the elephants came up to that point, Muzdalifah, which is barely about 15, I think, less kilometers from the Kaaba. The elephants refused to move forward in this place called Wadi Muhassar. And in Wadi Muhassar is a place where we are asked to pass quickly over that valley. We mustn't pause for long. And it's a sort of the boundary between Muzdalifah and Mina. And Muzdalifah is the place where you pick up the pebbles to throw at the Jamarat in Mina the next day or the next 3 days. So Abdul Muttalib was the leader of the Quraysh at the time. He advised the tribes to say, you know what, we can't face this army, this huge uh, battalion that's facing us. And they believed in their heart of hearts, although they were polytheists, they said, Allah will protect this house. It's got a Lord and He will protect it. And all we must do is go up to the mountains and find safety for ourselves. Don't worry about the Kaaba. The Kaaba will sort of look after itself, as it were. Now, Abraha's army was defeated by birds in this particular one that rained on them. And Abraha, they say, at the end of that particular sort of onslaught of the birds, he developed such a serious skin disease for which there was no cure, but he actually survived the ordeal, and he traveled all the way back to Yemen, where he died a natural death at that time in Yemen. Now, there's only one mention of this event of the year of the elephant in the entire Quran, and it is in this surah of barely 4 or 5 verses or ayats. And if you look at it in that whole surah, they don't mention Abraha by name. So, there's no dignified status given to a kafir of this magnitude who had that audacity to try and demolish the Kaaba. I mean, no one in his sane mind would ever even attempt this. But in any case, Allah allowed this thing to happen, and right virtually on the doorstep of Makkah, He defeated them, the army and the elephants. Then we have the next surah, which is Surah Quraish, and here we have the covenants or the agreements, which are ilaf. So you have that ilafi Quraish for the trade covenants of the Quraysh, the Rehlat al-Shitai was safe, the trips of the north to the south for trade. Then Allah makes a point of saying, worship the Lord of this house. So if you look at it, in the previous Lila Alam Tara, it was the aim of Abraha was to get to the Lord of the house, but he didn't get there. But the actual thing that Allah is telling the Quraysh here is worship the Lord of this house. Don't worship these idols that you put here. They're not worth worshipping. And besides, those idols, even though you put so many, could they themselves have helped you in any way against Abraha? The answer is a resounding no. So why are you even worshipping such gods made of stone and wood and marble or whatever? Why? And then also he reminds the Quraysh that we've blessed you with food and we gave you security and peace. If you remember, this was the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, that oh Allah bless my progeny with adequate food or supplies or sustenance and also give them peace. Now, if you look at the way trade happened in the desert of the time, people used to use dromedary, like a whole line of camels going with, all their goods tied on the backs of these camels and in a long straight line going to the north or to the south. So people who would be hijacking of the hijackers of the day or people that were the bandits of the day, from a distance they could see here's a caravan laden with goods. Obviously there's value, there's merchandise here of value. But if you look at it, the miracle of Allah was that Allah guaranteed the Quraysh safe passage in whichever direction they travel across the Arabian Peninsula, all because of the Kaaba that was the center of their existence, and because they were the custodians of the Kaaba. So He allowed free trade without any hindrance of these bandits on the way in any direction around the city of Makkah. So you can see how Allah sort of protected them in one way, but they in turn rebelled against Him by not worshipping Him and worshipping the idols. Okay, I'll just show you Wadi Muhassar, which is a picture of it. This is what it looks like. It's a narrow, about 100-meter stretch between Muzdalifah and Makkah, and this is where you are told in the days of Hajj, you have to pass there walking or by bus, but you don't stop there. You kind of just go quickly across. And there's nothing to do in this area, this 100-meter stretch of Wadi Muhassar. This map on the side just shows the location of all the famous idols that were located in the Arabian Peninsula. Allat, Al-Uzza, and Manat, and even Hubal is mentioned in the Quran, but these are some of the other bigger idols as well. All right, we then move on to how the thing looks. So Wadi Muhassar, if you look at Jabal Rahma is here, the bottom, Arafat is here. You go across and then you enter Muzdalifa, and then you next to Muzdalifa is Mina, and then you get the Kaaba at the end. So this little stretch here is Wadi Muhassar, the picture I showed you. This is where we pick up the stones and we pelt them at the three Jamarat on the side when during the 5 days of Hajj. So this is essentially how close Allah made him come all the way, like 1,500 kilometers with that size army of 12,000 men, 9 elephants and horses and camels on the rest of it. All the way, imagine you traveling 1,495 or 85 kilometers to come just here, all the way here, and then you get a hiding of your life, a thrashing that you never expected from the skies above. Now, this is the way Allah plans, and he's the best of planners. He sometimes gives people rope and more rope, and they'll hang themselves one day. And when the punishment comes, there's nothing that will avert that punishment, and it will just come on you and just wipe you out and show you and teach you a lesson that you never ever forget. And also, this is a lesson for tyrants and dictators, even up to today. That sometimes you can have the best armies, the best fighter jets, the best Merkava and other tanks, everything the best. You can have the army that's maybe the fourth best in the world, but when you come against Allah and what His design and plan is, you stand no chance. Sometimes you get shot from the top. Sometimes the earth can just cave in below you in an earthquake. Sometimes it can be through a flood. It can be through any natural causes and even supernatural causes where Allah, if He decides a punishment has to rain on you, no one can avert it, and it's definitely destined for you, and you'll have it, and you'll get it, and you'll actually, your whole nation can sort of be wiped out as a result of that particular anger of Allah that descends on you at the time. Okay, so I think let me stop there. We've touched our 30-minute limit that I said we'll keep to. We'll continue with this one. This one I think we've covered in a great detail, but there's a little more to say about the surah. I just want to go through all the words and why certain words were used. And then we'll go on to Lilafi Quraish, which is also a short surah, and we can cover both of them in the next session of 30 minutes on Tuesday night, inshallah. Okay, so these few words, I'll end there. Let's end with Surah Al-Asr. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Al-Asr. By the token of time, Inna al-insana lafi khusr. Surely man is at a loss. Illa alladhina amanu, except those who believe. Wa amilu salihat, and those who do good deeds. Wa tawasaw bil-haq, wa tawasaw bil-sabr, and those who encourage each other to do well and encourage each other in patience as well. Okay, so with that, I'd end and